Hello and welcome back. My name is Brynskov. I'm the chair of OASC, and with me here I have in this follow-on session on AI, I have two of the most central people to not just thinking about the relationship between AI and public services, but also doing a lot about it, shaping our common future. So Ger Baron from City of Amsterdam and Mikko Rusama from City of Helsinki. So maybe just to hear your voices. Hi, Ger, how are you doing?
Martin, not that bad at all. Thanks for having me in this online discussion. Looking forward.
It's great that you took the time. It's busy times. You have the virus. You have, the whole situation.
We have a government actually that's being pushed away because of the algorithms, basically. So we are actually part of the what can go wrong with algorithms experience right now in many ways.
Okay, so you're referring to the news in the Netherlands about the government discussion. Okay, maybe we can come back to that. So Mikko, are you still with us here? Maybe we lost Mikko. Okay. Anyway, I think we will go ahead and then we will introduce Mikko a little bit. We had him just a second ago. Just to set the scene, we are going to talk about the algorithm registries, the AI registries that Amsterdam and Helsinki have been working together on. Of course, that's super relevant for so many municipalities in Europe and around the world. So maybe we can take that as a starting point. And you have made a small film, you and your team here. So maybe we can ask to play that just to see what are we talking about when we talk about algorithm and AI registries. Please play the film.
Introducing the world's first algorithm and artificial intelligence register. Algorithms and artificial intelligence have become an integral part of our lives. Governments use these tools to improve the accessibility and experience of their services and our public spaces. However, that means that citizens need to understand how algorithms work and how they affect their daily lives. That's why we have developed the Algorithm and AI Register. The register gives citizens the transparency they deserve. You can learn why and how algorithms are being used and who is affected. Or dive into what data is being used, how it's processed, how discrimination is prevented, the degree of human oversight, and how risks are handled. Help us improve the register and make it the standard for transparency in algorithms and artificial intelligence.
Voila, thanks. So that was a great film. And welcome back, Mikko. Just to say, we just watched the film without you. Hope it's okay. Mikko Rusama, the Chief Digital Officer of Helsinki. Hey, can we hear your voice, Mikko?
Can you hear me well now? Sorry,
yes.
my actually Zoom just crashed and now I'm back in business. Sorry about that.
You should never rely on software. Okay, no. So we will have a conversation starting with this register that you have co-developed. So here, maybe you can start. Why?
Yeah, the thing is, as cities, I think we're on the edge of where we actually see the impact that algorithms have on our citizens, basically. If every platform that comes in, and from vacation rental or taxis or mobility platforms or retail, whatever, we actually see what's happening in our city. So we feel the burden of technology popping in, and then we thought, hey, all those algorithms that play a big role in the daily life of people actually have a place where you feel it and where you see the impact. And then we thought, why is it not transparent? So we actually were a bit shocked by looking at our own algorithms at first, basically. Say, hey, do we use algorithms? Do we understand them? Or did we actually think about this before we start using them? So we thought we need to make this transparent. And then in conversations with Mikko and others, say, actually every city now has this issue. Every government has this issue. And we all look at Europe to come up with regulations, or national governments to come up with regulations. And then we thought, well, we can do this ourselves. We don't need regulations to start doing this. And learn and see how it actually works. So bring it to practice, and we strongly believe from the perspective of, well, digital rights, basically, that people have the right to know what data is being used, in what way, and what's the impact on their daily life. So we actually let's start doing it and not wait for European or national regulations.
Okay, but so basically what you're saying also is that you're just following the normal logic of government, that there should be transparency in the public conduct, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, our digital agenda is not about how to implement IoT systems. Our digital agenda is about how can we create a city where you can move around freely, where you can move around safely, also in a digital space. And when you say you want to move freely around, this also means that, well, you want to know what people try to influence you, or people use your data, make decisions based on your data you don't know of. So freedom is also a very strong aspect in the digital space in that perspective.
Mikko, so your mayor wants to create the most functional city in the world. Why do you need transparency? It just should be convenient. It should just work, no hassle. Why do you need a register?
As Herr said, I mean, usage of algorithms and kind of AI is creeping in on all areas of life. I mean, there are more and more services utilizing algorithms and AI, and I think we are kind of public servants, and we have, for example, here in Helsinki, we have 500 statutory tasks. And I have often said that we kind of we need to have the trust of our residents to operate and serve people, and without trust there is no use for AI. So I believe that, I mean, being open and transparent on how we use new technologies and algorithms and AI is contribute. I mean, increase in trust of citizens on what we do. And I see that it's also vital that, I mean, it's sometimes really difficult to anticipate the, for example, possible problems in the usage of algorithms when we engage citizens in, for example, in evaluation of algorithm and help them to understand how we are using algorithms. We are able to maybe point out kind of problems beforehand and take corrective actions.
So what you're saying is that actually, to be the world's most functional city, you also need this trust, because otherwise you will not reach that goal?
Exactly. I mean, I think we have to kind of serve people on their own terms. and I believe that you as an individual, I mean, people, you should have right to understand how your data is being used, how and you should be also have some better mandate control on your own data and the way kind of data is used to serve you. And I mean, more and more we are using like algorithms and AI and for you to understand the kind of way we use these technologies is, I think, important. For some, it may not be that important, but for those who are interested, they should have a chance to really deep dive and understand on how we use those.
So here, I understand there's a little bit of public interest in the algorithms and the code that's being employed by government in the Netherlands currently. Are there examples of, public perception understanding the necessity to be transparent about AI? Why not just have functional AI and that's fine?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, our National Tax Authority actually had a few issues last years with using algorithms to detect fraud. And now probably there are now 4 ministers who stepped away, basically, and probably everybody will step away within a few days because the National Tax Authority created algorithms that were very effective in finding people who committed fraud. And so they literally said in court, we're 70% more effective. We don't have a clue how this algorithm works, but it's effective. And then they said you actually can really understand how an algorithm works to the judge. So obviously this was not the right answer. So there's a lot of discussion right now, and it's elections in March in the Netherlands. So algorithms are actually part of the debate around elections quite a bit right now, because the Prime Minister probably will step away from his function tomorrow, hopefully. Because 6,000-7,000 people actually were selected by the tax authority to get the money back, etc. And they were selected by their family name, their nationality, etc. So everything you don't want to have. So I think it's quite, in the Netherlands, we have a relatively high degree of automation and digitalization in government services internally. We use a lot of smart technology. But the people who, the law and order people actually, start to make a bit too much use of the possibilities they had without having the proper knowledge within government. And the whole idea that you can make things transparent seemed to be silly, or not necessarily, because otherwise people could see what you were doing, etc. So all this, not that smart thinking was involved in that. So we saw that algorithms were used. There were tremendous people who suffered from that, amount of people who suffered from this. And on the other hand, they didn't really understand it. So the level of knowledge in government was too low, and every process was very intransparent. I mean, it is obviously unthinkable within a government in a democracy.
So would the AI register, would that have saved the tax authority?
Probably, because people would start to see what was happening actually, and could probably see, hey, what the register does is a few things. It's not only explaining what the algorithm does, it's also showing the referring to the test set of data that's being used to come up with something example given. And I think that when people have the opportunity to look at it and start to think with it, they also start to improve it and see what the flaws and the imperfection is. The flaws are in the algorithm as well. So transparency is the start, I would say, of everything. Basically, we can't. Technology is our future. Digitalization is our future. I mean, everybody sees that as well, I would say. But when it's not transparent, we're going into a world that actually, makes sure people, don't have a clue why we have a tax invoice or whatever. So it's So I think it would help. Transparency is the start, because people see what happens, and it also helps you to ask the right questions and make sure the algorithms are not being used. I mean, and one more thing: when you can't explain the algorithm, don't use it. So when you can't put it in a register, don't use it.
Okay. So you're saying that there's a reason why the cities were first in developing this. It's because you were like close to all these issues actually. But cities are also very different. So Mikko, you have not implemented like 100% the same thing. Can you explain some of the differences that you have chosen differently in Helsinki than in Amsterdam?
No, firstly, what we have done is the kind of first version, and what we have now is not what we will have. But I think there are a couple of important points. Firstly, we have been working together with City of Amsterdam, CITYxCITY, on the metadata model that kind of describes these algorithms, and that is important. So there is a kind of, let's say, more structured way of describing these algorithms. And secondly, there should be some way to kind of make the kind of use cases public, and we have set up with this webpage ai.hel.fi. So we are talking about AI registry, and I think maybe the kind of algorithm registered kind of City of Amsterdam has chosen is more appropriate. Of course, the word algorithm is challenging, because any conditional statement can be regarded as an algorithm. So you could say that algorithms are everywhere. So one of the challenges is, how do you choose the right cases to be evaluated? So somehow they need to be kind of meaningful and kind of relevant. So I see the practical challenge. So how do you actually choose the right use cases and kind of algorithms And secondly, of course, the challenge is that some of the algorithms we need to use are probably protected by IPR, so we don't have maybe the same level of transparency. I mean, there are cases where you simply maybe cannot have any open source or kind of alternative to the algorithm currently used. So that is also something that I think City of Amsterdam has been also, and we have been talking about this procurement standards. When we procure kind of solutions, can we somehow kind of force kind of suppliers, ICT suppliers, to also kind of open up on these algorithms and how they're using? The fact is that today we may not even have understanding on how different algorithms are kind of used in various different legacy systems we are having. But anyways, so I just see the principle so important that more and more we try to make public kind of in the kind of public register what we have, and also figure out how to effectively kind of engage discussion with the citizens. So I think this is a learning process, and I believe that we can learn from each other on what is the right approach. The fact is that, I mean, it's not easy to evaluate the impact of algorithms. That is the fact. I mean, how do you describe these algorithms the way that people actually can understand what it's all about? On certain abstraction level, I mean, we can all explain how Facebook algorithms work, but if you go into details, it's not public, and it's probably very complicated on what kind of parameters it's using. To give you an example.
So there's at least a couple of questions here. So, I mean, you said, how do we scope this? Is it algorithm? Is it only AI? Is it every code? I mean, we could have you know, a mandate saying, well, we prefer transparency, and like we have the transparent administration when it comes to paper, right? Not all of it. Some of it is confidential.
Yeah.
But, you know, the principle is transparency in the governance.
Yeah,
we could have that with code. And yeah, you work with the Foundation for Public Code. We have a session later today. So why not all code? It needs to be registered. Otherwise, it's not legal.
In baseline, I would agree basically, but I can understand some things are proprietary because there's competition, etc., which is a good thing. So I can imagine not everything is open for everyone, but it should be, let's say, auditable in a certain extent, basically. So an audit should be and so we're going to ask in our procurement. We should ask, hey, what does your algorithm do? And maybe a third party should take a look at it for certain reasons. Fine, but we want to make sure that it fits our framework, the way we look at algorithms. And it's not only it's automatic decision making, basically. I think when some decisions are being made by software in a broad way, I mean, you want to know why and how, and when it's self-learning, it's a bit more complicated, probably. So you want to see it or put an audit on it. And this is also, I mean, and we're now doing it for our own algorithms, but it also will be in like Mikko said, in a procurement, or maybe your or legislation or permits, etc. When you want to operate a taxi company in Amsterdam, fine, but we want to make sure your algorithm doesn't benefit certain people or discriminate other people or take your data without you knowing it, etc. So it's broader than only the algorithm. It's also about who's taking your data, etc. But this is, I would say, part of it is the decision-making thing, and this is what we try to do with a register.
So the interesting part, I mean, of course, some elements will still be closed, but still should be certified, so they're not dangerous or improper. So we have been working together, in fact, on Fair AI and describing what is then the minimal capabilities you require. So if you ask a system, do you employ automated decision making? It should be mandated to answer. And if it answers no, fine. But it answers yes, it should be, open to audit, not just, it shouldn't take a month. It should take, a couple of milliseconds, right? So what are the capabilities that these systems must be able to reveal?
Mikko.
So what you mean that what technical capabilities need to be in place? I think that if I think about this challenge, firstly, we have a lot of data, and simply understanding what data we have is not a trivial challenge. We have 900 different systems we have calculated, and 450 of them contain some sort of privacy data. And I mean, we have been working on a data strategy that tries to kind of outline the kind of principles and goals on how we use data. So I see that the starting point is to really start understanding what data do we have, and who is the kind of a registry owner for the data. By default, I mean, if you have two different registers, you are not allowed to move data across these. And when you start to figure out, start to look at the different services we have and how we are using the data, I think, I mean, the capabilities we are working on is that we need to have like we are talking about my data operator capabilities. So for individuals, we should be able to provide capability to see through kind of a personal profile on what data we have stored from you, and also kind of show what is the legal basis for the data usage, and also have a kind of mechanism on how to give permissions for the data usage. And if the permission is to use for certain services that is utilizing algorithms or AI, I see that there should be some kind of link to the AI registry. I mean, I'm talking here also something that we don't have in place yet, but as you see that, I think this to me, this AI registry is part of the solution. I mean, we are also working on capabilities that enable like kind of having like this kind of digital profile and the kind of capabilities to see what data has been stored and then giving consent. So it's a kind of a set of capabilities. There is no silver bullet. So and somehow we need to make a seamless kind of integration on so that you as an individual, you can easily see the data part, the algorithm part, and even give a chance to give feedback, and then there should be mechanisms that we internally can process the kind of feedback from different stakeholders. Right. I don't know if you followed up. I think I'm not sure if I answered to your question, but this is I mean.
It's work in progress, but I think also there's a point in what you both are saying that, I mean, even if Helsinki is the most functional city in the world and Amsterdam is the coolest, I mean, you cannot persuade the entire supply side to just follow if you want to say something. The world is big. So there's also a point in joining forces. And so one of the things we did here at the event now, we invited now enterprise partners such as the Vastu Group, which are doing the platform of trust very much towards this. I mean, we have Atos, we have Deloitte, we have NEC, we have Amazon Web Services. So actually there's quite big suppliers who are asking the two of you, what are the capabilities we should live up to be worthy of working with your data and providing your systems? So one final remark on Gea, how can we work together on getting these minimal capabilities for the fair AI so that we will have a market that you can buy in?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there is a market. I mean, the good thing about working with Helsinki is when we have 3 or 4 cities, actually, don't even need to be 20 or 25, basically. When you have 3 or 4, I think you can create a market, basically. And I do think, actually, that every company in the world understands that this is going to happen. So I think we can show the good practices, companies who comply, etc. And I truly think every company wants to be regulated in this perspective. I mean, every discussion, even the big tech says that needs to be some kind of regulation. So I think we can work with everybody to show, well, and ultimately make it European regulations, basically, that's mandatory. But I think by showing it, I think it's, I think there's a lot of energy for us to start building this capacity, and we shouldn't make it too complicated. I mean, when we don't understand it, we need to find help and coalitions, basically. And there are a lot of people who want to help the government because the importance is clear for everyone.
Fantastic. Mikko, a final word again on what is the next thing we need to work together on?
Well, I mean, next thing, I mean, we are working to kind of expand the use of AI registry, and I clearly see that the kind of sharing experience with City of Amsterdam is really important. Also, I think it is interesting work on how, what is the kind of let's say governance model on how should we evaluate in practice these kind of use cases. I mean, we have something in place, but it's still like finding its kind of shape, and also I see that we need to train people, and I could kind of advertise here that we are working on the kind of ethics of AI course with the Helsinki University, and so you may want to look at ethicsofai.morg.fi. And I think there are interesting use cases from cities also that so training people is so important. Again, here we can share kind of material, and I think City of Amsterdam has done a great job on procurement standards. I think that has been inspiration to us, and we have to localize these to our context. And I mean, we have pretty clear plan, a lot of work to be done, but we have a good start. And as said, I mean, there can be collaboration on many levels.
And very practical as well. It's not only theory and talking about it.
Exactly.
I mean, there's things we can do.
Practical stuff.
It's fantastic. So I think we should end on that, because the theme here is it's the City by City Festival, which means actually, you know, cities are working with cities, citizens with citizens, countries with countries, and maybe even continents with continents. And we also know that we now have a catalog. I'm not just the AI registry and so on, but the City by City catalog. So you can start actually, you know, eating your own dog food. If you want to share this with others, put it on. We have the academy. So Mikko, we can slap the whole MOOC thing and package it. And we have, of course, the fantastic links between people, which are the strongest links that will help us forward.
Yeah.
So thank you. I think we end there. And Ger, good luck with the government and the governance of Amsterdam and thereabouts. Thank you for coming back once again here. It's a pleasure. Mikko, say hi to everybody up in the cold. And we hope to see you all soon in a more physical form. But thanks for joining.
Yeah.
And now back and over to the team.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you. Take care.